What's up guys, my name is Rising and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where we take a deep dive into all of the important stats for all of the weapons in COD Mobile's multiplayer, and towards the end I provide some recommended class setups that suit your playstyle. In a recent patch, we saw some nerfs to the Skill Overdrive wildcard, alongside nerfs to the Machine Pistol and the PKM. However, there was one nerf in particular that caught most players' attention, which was to the XM4. So in today's video, as requested by you guys, we'll be taking a deep look into the weapon as a whole and also compare it to its immediate competitor, the Type 19, and discuss whether that's now going to perform more efficiently than the post-nerf XM4. So just for a historical context, the Type 19 was added to the game in Season 2 of 2024, which dethroned the Grau, being arguably the best flex assault rifle at that time. It continued its legacy for around a year till the XM4 was added in Season 1 of 2025, and after a series of buffs to it, it became an immediate replacement for the Type 19, thanks to its consistency and its ease of use.
The XM4 saw a pretty frequent usage among the casual player base as well as the ranked community. And to no one's surprise, it was one of the only two assault rifles being used in the 2025 World Championships, the other one being the Odin, of course. This does say a lot about the state of the current meta, but that's for another video. But now after the nerf, is the weapon still viable? Or does the Type 19 now performs better than the XM4? We'll go very deep into this topic in this video, and to start off, let us first have a look to their raw power potentials, and we'll go on a gun-by-gun basis for this particular section so that you can have enough depth with these. The Type 19 is a 4-shot kill anywhere in the body till 12 meters, beyond which you can still achieve a 4-shot till 25 meters if you hit at least twice to the upper torso or arms, which is very forgiving. It is a guaranteed 5-shot till 35 meters, beyond that it's an infinite 6-shot kill. You can also achieve a 3-shot kill till its second damage range if all of your shots land the head. The same potential can be achieved in its maximum damage range if you mix 1 headshot and 2 upper torso or arm shots in the equation. The rate of fire is high for an assault rifle at 750 rounds per minute. This means your 3, 4, and 5-shot time to kills will be 160, 240, and 320 milliseconds respectively. All of them are extremely competitive in the current meta, depending on the ranges they can achieve that potential. Long story short, the Type 19 is extremely consistent in achieving a 4-shot kill till its second damage range, where you need to land just 2 shots to the upper torso or arms. It also has a 3-shot potential if you mix 1 headshot and 2 upper torso or arm shots in the maximum damage range. Now for the XM4. The base weapon is pretty underwhelming in terms of its body multipliers. However, the moment you put on its crutch attachment, which is the 13.5-inch Task Force barrel, it greatly improves all of its damage multipliers across the upper body. With this now, it is a 4-shot kill anywhere in the body till 18 meters, which just like the Type 19 can be stretched up to 28.5 meters if you hit at least twice anywhere but the legs. The damage output of the XM4 is extremely similar to the Type 19, the only difference being that the critical zones of the XM4 stretch all the way down to the lower torso, whereas for the Type 19 it only applies to the upper torso and arms.
So summing it up, the XM4 has a theoretical advantage over the Type 19 in terms of its lower torso multipliers, as you need not be precisely hitting the upper body to achieve its 4-shot potential. This is one of the reasons why the XM4 is so consistent and preferred by the majority of the player base. And for context, this is what it looks on my range chart, and as you can see, the XM4 with its Task Force barrel has a longer potential 4-shot range than the Type 19. The barrel also boosts its bullet velocity to over 1200 meters per second, which is an added bonus to the weapon. However, this is the only range boosting attachment for the XM4, and you cannot extend its range further. The Type 19 has a couple range boosting attachments, which will come once we discuss the builds. Now that the lethality is out of the way, let us now come to the other base stats, starting with their handling. And as you can see, the Type 19 has a faster aim down sight as well as sprint out time than the XM4. The same trend continues with their mobility, and surprisingly enough, the Type 19 did get a mobility nerf few seasons back, but it is still better than the XM4 across the board.
There is a common complaint that the XM4 has a superior mobility to the Type 19 and it quote-unquote plays like an SMG. However, that isn't really the case, at least for the base weapons, as what we saw just now. The Type 19 is clearly the winner here in terms of both handling and mobility.
Moving on to accuracy, both the Type 19 and the XM4 have pretty good bullet spread, and it's fine for the ranges you're generally going to be taking in counters. However, the hipfire spread on the XM4 is extremely bad compared to the Type 19. This is one area where the XM4 struggles to keep up, and generally you shouldn't be hipfiring with the XM4 all that often. The Type 19, on the other hand, has no such problem, as it can hold up on its own pretty nicely in those point-blank encounters. And finally, coming to hit flinch, this is the area where the XM4 will now struggle quite hard in those mid-ranges, as its flinch is nerfed from AR standards all the way down to SMG standards. This might seem like a small change, however this stat matters a lot if you want to stretch out those ranges, which the XM4 was very capable of before its nerf. So your best interest shouldn't lie in challenging those extreme ranges unless you want to get punished hard by other long-range assault rifles or LMGs.
Now for recoil, both the Type 19 and the XM4 have very easy and predictable recoil patterns. The Type 19 kicks up for the first 6 shots and then shifts towards the left, while the XM4 kicks literally upwards with no deviation to the sides. So the moment you can find the exact speed of pulling down, you can beam enemies across the map with this gun, although now you have to include flinch in the equation. The Type 19's pattern is also very easy to learn, and personally, I've experienced much lower kick with it than the XM4. But that's just my own experience, and generally speaking, both the guns are incredibly accurate in this regard. And finally, for magazines, I wanted to cover them individually, as both of them have a number of different options to choose from. The base mag capacity for the Type 19 is 30 rounds with 120 in reserve. It reloads in 1.56 seconds with an empty reload time of 1.65 seconds, which are a little bit on the slower side for such magazine capacity in this game. With sleight of hand, you can cut it down to 1.33 seconds, which is a good improvement over the base. The Type 19 has a few interesting magazine attachments, so let us cover them real quick.
The fast reload mag adds 18 more rounds to our base magazine while also reducing our reload times down to 1.4 seconds, which is excellent. The supportive drum mag improves our magazine capacity to 75 rounds without affecting our reload times at all. These are now very impressive reload times for a 75-round magazine. However, the mag comes with heavy mobility downsides, so I wouldn't really suggest this over the fast mag. And finally, we have the high accuracy sniper ammo, which turns the weapon to a semi-automatic DMR by totally changing its damage output. Although this isn't the purpose of the current video, I'm still going to rush through this attachment just for the sake of completion. With this now, the gun turns into a 2-shot anywhere in the body till 36 meters, which can be extended till 75 meters with 2 upper torso or arm shots. Beyond that, it reduces to a 3-shot kill, but practically you'll never find a line of sight that is beyond 75 meters in standard 5v5 multiplayer maps in this game. It is also an instant 1-shot kill to the head up to that mark. However, our rate of fire is toned down to 278 rounds per minute, which is the slowest out of all the semi-auto conversions for assault rifles in this game. And for comparison, this is what it looks when placed side by side with the other semi-auto assault rifles.
I don't want to go too deep into this, but all that you need to know is the semi-auto Type 19 is the worst one out of all of these here in terms of time to kill. It might be a little better than the semi-auto Lag 53 in terms of consistency, however none of these are worth using than actual DMRs in this game. Still, if you want to give it a try, I'll have a build towards the end of the video for you to give it a try. Now for the XM4, our base magazine capacity is 30 rounds. However, unlike other weapons, we have 5 reserve mags instead of 4, which means our reserve ammo capacity is 150. It reloads in 1.33 seconds with an empty reload at 1.47, which aren't too bad for its magazine capacity. Now, if you want, you can reduce it all the way down to 1.13 seconds if you use sleight of hand, but you don't want to be wasting a slot on that since this gun heavily depends on attachments to be good. The XM4 has a bunch of magazine attachments to select from, and the most popular of them is the STANAG 50-round mag, which of course increases our reload time slightly, but at least we have 50 rounds to work with. There are a bunch of players who do use the Salvo 45-round mags, which improves our mag size and reload speed while harming our aim down sight, but I don't recommend that for 2 reasons. Firstly, there's only one attachment that improves our ADS time, and secondly, the hipfire on the XM4 is pretty bad, which means you can hipfire your way out if you don't have the time to ADS, so it's always better to have a faster aim down sight on this weapon to snap onto targets when they're too close.
But with that wraps up on all of the base stats of both the weapons. Till now we saw that the XM4 has better consistency than the Type 19, however the Type 19 takes the spot in terms of handling and mobility. Both the guns are extremely accurate, so there's no competition in that. However, after the nerf, the XM4 has significantly worse flinch than the Type 19. But that's just one side of the story. Now let us get them up and finally see where they hold up to. I have a few builds up here for the Type 19 since you can build it in more than a single way, unlike the XM4. The first one up here is my flex build, where we have the heavyweight suppressor for concealment and range, agile stock for better handling, merc foregrip for overall improved mobility, accurate grip for better ADS and flinch resistance, and finally we top it off with the fast reload mag. This is an all-around setup with which you can play pretty aggressively and also challenge some of those longer range encounters. But since this gun has such a good damage profile, sometimes I like to play a bit passive and make it a versatile sort of weapon. For that purpose, I have this precision build, where we again have the heavy suppressor. I have the long barrel up here since I want to stretch out those ranges as much as possible, paired up with an optic of preference since the irons on the Type 19 aren't really ideal for longer range engagements. And finally, we again have the accurate grip and the fast mag. If you're fine with the iron sights or have a blueprint with better irons, then you may swap out the optic for the merc foregrip, as that'll compensate the mobility loss due to the barrel. I do use this build quite often whenever I want to play versatile with it and fully exploit its damage output, and surprisingly this gun is very consistent in doing so. I'd highly recommend to give both builds a try and see which one you like better. And finally, as I said earlier, if you want to give the sniper ammo a try, then the next build is for you. We have the tactical suppressor for concealment, steady stock for BSA and flinch resistance, an optic of preference since this is a precision build, accurate grip for ADS and flinch resistance, and finally the sniper ammo, of course. Again, if you've got a better blueprint, then you may swap out the optic for merc foregrip. I wouldn't recommend running this ammo apart from trying it out for the first time, as it's the worst semi-auto conversion in its class in terms of damage output. But that's going to wrap up with the builds for the Type 19, and now moving on to the XM4, there's only one possible way of building it, where we have the agency suppressor for concealment and recoil control, the task force barrel for range, velocity, and lethality, bruiser grip for overall improved mobility, serpent wrap for ADS and flinch resistance, and finally the Stanag 50-round mag. I don't really recommend the combat stock as it harms our already bad hipfire spread, so I prefer the bruiser grip instead. This is probably the only setup that you'll see most of the players running, with maybe very slight tweaks. Nonetheless, this works the best for me for the purpose the gun's meant to use. And putting all of them side by side, this is what it looks on my range chart. And the first thing to point out is that the flex build for the Type 19 doesn't have good bullet velocity, so your best interest should lie in those close to mid-range encounters. Nonetheless, all of them have very impressive range profiles, with the precision build having a very impressive 52 meters of guaranteed 5-shot kill. As for the other stats, to keep it apples to apples, I'm going to compare the Flex Type 19 to the XM4, as both of them fundamentally serve the same purpose. First off, the Type 19 does have a better effective potential 4-shot as well as a guaranteed 5-shot range than the XM4. However, you should keep in mind that you need to hit the upper torso or the arms in its second damage range for the Type 19. The BSA is solid for both of them, however the XM4 is bad at hip firing as mentioned earlier. The XM4 used to have better hit flinch before its nerf, and now the Type 19 takes the spot for it. The handling and mobility is better for the Type 19 across the board apart from its aim down sight, which the XM4 has an upper edge. The magazine capacity is essentially the same for both of them, apart from the one extra reserve mag advantage of the XM4. Finally, to sum it up, the only advantage that the XM4 has is its consistency across ranges as well as its superior bullet velocity. You might argue that it has a better ADS speed, which is required as it doesn't have a good hip-fire spread to make it effective at close ranges. And finally, the recoil is subjective. Once you find the exact speed of pulling down, you can beam enemies across the map. On the other hand, the Type 19 does have a slower aim down sight, however it compensates for that with a faster sprint out and overall mobility. It now also has a better flinch resistance than the XM4, meaning you can stretch out your ranges pretty effectively. You might consider running the toughness perk if you want to use the XM4. And there you have it. That's finally going to wrap it up on this comparison between the Type 19 and the XM4. Now for the final question, is the Type 19 more effective than the XM4? Honestly, that depends on how you perceive both the weapons. This solely comes down to personal preference, as both of them are top-tier assault rifles and are extremely competitive in the current meta. Personally, if I'm going to play aggressive, then I'll probably pick the XM4. However, if I want to play versatile, then I'll go with the Type 19, especially the Precision build. I really love that build and works perfectly for my purpose. But of course, those were just my thoughts on the Type 19 and the XM4. Now, I'd love to hear from the comments down below, which one do you prefer among these? Would you still be using the XM4 even after its flinch nerf, or would you rather switch to the Type 19 instead and have a more versatile playstyle? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you have any other comparison videos in mind, then let me know as well. In case you've missed any of my previous gun guides, I'll leave the links to the playlists in the description of this video. If you want builds for all the weapons in the game and want to be a part of the community, then join my Discord server. And if you're new around here, then make sure to subscribe to see future content and leave a like on this video. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.